Are they really being nice? So that's a question you're probably going to run across. And I know I've made other videos about this, but this is something that's recently been happening to me, and I thought that it would be good to talk about. There are a lot of times that whenever you're going through this, that your ex will act normal. Now, I've made videos specifically about Beware of the Nice. That's one of my older videos where I talk a little bit about that. And then that rolls in also into some of my other videos like Absolute Thinking. The problem is after you've been burned by these people a couple of times, after you've been burned by your ex a couple of times, you're going to go through this little bit of a change to where you're unsure what really, well, until you decide how to approach it, you're going to be unsure. And what I mean by that is that if every time they start acting normal and you think that, okay, well, maybe this means that there's a change, and you start modifying your interactions with them, you can get yourself into some binds. You have to look at everything in the big picture. You can't necessarily look at things as one-off incidences. And it's really easy to do that whenever they do something that has the appearance of being what a normal, reasonable person would do. The problem is most of the time they have an agenda associated with that. It's not necessarily a genuine comment just to be nice. Like if you do something for somebody that you don't have any other motivation other than just to make them happy, that's one thing. But when you're doing things, and probably you're not, but when somebody is doing something to try to curry favor or to try to get something out of it, then that you need to take that into account. Now, what you'll probably notice is they'll do something around, if there's something that they're if there's something that they're wanting or there's something that they need you to do, then they might try to modify their behavior to give you the appearance that they're normal and that you to ease up. And primarily it's just to get what they want. And it's really tough because you really, in the back of your mind, you really want the situation to stabilize. You want it to turn into a normal, as normal as a divorce situation can be. But you have to look at the reality of your situation and what's really going on and how things are playing out. So, if somebody's being nice and they're backing it up with genuine, just a genuine nice gesture just because they want to do something nice, that's one thing, right? But if it's all coupled around manipulation or appearances, then you have a problem. Now, this goes back into what I've talked about before about the absolute thinking, where realistically, once you've gotten to a point that you've realized that there's a lot of toxicity in this relationship and it's been, just surrounded by emotional turmoil, there really isn't a good reason for you to re-engage and try to have a relationship with this person. Now, the flip side to it is that, you see other people who can get along with their exes and maybe they can co-parent and stuff like that. There's not that trauma associated with it, right? So they don't have, they're probably in a more mature relationship. And as a result of that, there's not games being played, right? It's like they've realized that one person's gone left, one person's gone right, but they still have kids that they have to interact with. So they're doing that for the good of their kids, right? And they don't necessarily hate the other person, and there's no risk really associated with getting sucked back in, right? Because they've come to that arrangement in a different way than we've come into it. If you find yourself to where you're constantly thinking about your ex and you're constantly fantasizing or romanticizing about, anything with them, I mean, whether it's good or bad, and if you fundamentally just realize that, if you were around your ex and if they pretended to love, well, not pretended, if they started the love bombing stage and all that type of stuff again, if you're at risk for falling victim to that, you really have to give yourself some space to deal with it. And in that situation, whenever they start doing things nice, you have to be really careful because you can let your guard down. You can actually, think, well, maybe they weren't, maybe they're not really this. Maybe they're really not, a narcissist. Maybe, maybe it was just I was being difficult and they were being difficult, and we got into this stalemate, and it's not real, right? Maybe this is the real thing. Maybe they finally calm down so I can calm down, whatever. More than likely, unless you're in the early stages of this, and if you are in the early stages with this, I absolutely understand what you're going through, because until you get some experience, well, not experience, but some of those negative experiences under your belt. What I mean is by where you do try to interact with your ex, you try to give them the benefit of the doubt. You try to let that, normalcy enter back into the relationship, and you get burned. Either, you finally, you agree because, everyone's starting to be a little bit better. So you agree to let them do something, and then they disappear. Then they Casper, right? Casper the Friendly Ghost. And so, if you've had that happen, then you already know, right? If you're in the early stages and you're struggling with that, I get it, right? And if you have to, if you can't move on to the next step of this until you at least try, it's dangerous. But if that's what you have to do to be able to move forward, then just do it with open eyes, right? Do it knowing that there's more than likely an agenda, more than likely something else going on. They're trying to get something. They're trying to get something from you. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to, they have something coming up via court. There's some issue that's going on for the reason for them to be doing it. Now, I've had that experience multiple times. In the last 5.5, 6 years, that's happened a lot. There'll be times where she'll act different, and I'll think that it's like, okay, finally, things are calming down, things are going to get different, and it doesn't, right? As soon as as soon as the relationship dynamic would turn to a, normal, as into where I would communicate with her in a more open way, boom, it would go right back to okay, it was almost like she thought she had me rehooked and could go right back into the controlling behavior, and that I would fall right in line. The difference is that I would back off, fully aware of what was going on, or fully aware of what my new boundaries were. That's a better way to put that. And then she would cross them, and that was a deal breaker. I'm like, oh, hell no, I am not going to revert back to this, right? Which then would degrade the whole thing down again. So I'm going through a lot of these little scenarios where, especially, she's finished college, like I've been talking about. That actually happened on Friday. My son's graduation is coming up. I mean, all these changes are happening, and she's acting. It's funny. It's not that she's acting different. Well, let me back up. Yeah, she's acting a little bit different in that she's trying to communicate more, but she has an agenda. But if I take a step back, I can see the consistent patterns in all the information, right? And then part of the reason I was talking about this video is I wanted to talk a little bit about the nuances of when they're doing something that appears to be nice. And I'll give you an example. So yesterday, the girls and I and Debbie all went down to a Renaissance fair, right? We've been planning this for months, and had costumes and I even kind of dressed up. I mean, it's not normally my thing, but anyways, we all went down there. It was really an interesting, good time, right? I don't mean interesting as in bad, but it was a great time. So today, I'm filming this video on Mother's Day. So anyone who's a mother, I hope you had a great Mother's Day, and if you had, hopefully you had access and time to spend with your children. And what happened today is we got up, figured we'll just go get something to eat early. They were going to see their mom later in the day. And everything seemed to be okay. Then the next thing I know, my daughter is bawling. She is really upset. She comes in, she says she's going to take a shower, but she's crying. And I'm like, what in the world? So I go in and ask her, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, she has this pet fish over at her mom's house. She goes, well, this pet fish died. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you emailed, you texted your mom, Happy Mother's Day, and she told you your fish died? And she goes, no. And I'm like, well, what happened? She goes, well, I hadn't texted. I mean, it's not funny. She goes, well, I hadn't texted her yet. She just texted me that the fish died. And so my first reaction, anyways, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry your fish died. I was trying to be consoling to her. And, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, seriously? It's like, why the heck? I mean, you drop this bomb, which my ex is notorious for doing stuff like that. It's like you drop this bomb, you don't know what's going on. It's an external bomb, right? I mean, it comes in through different means of communication, text or, well, mainly text. And it's been an issue throughout the last, few years. It doesn't always happen, but, whatever. And so initially I'm like, okay, well, that's really jacked. You're making all the drama at my place, so it's not going to be at your place. Well, it's going to be, she cares about the fish, so it's going to be that way anyways. So then later talking to my son, and I'm like, what was the deal with the fish? You go, oh, well, the fish has been sick. And he's like, well, actually the fish died yesterday. And I'm thinking, oh, thank God she didn't say anything while we were down at this thing, because it would have totally ruined the day. Initial feeling is like, wow, that's unlike her. Why would she do that? Why would she not ruin it? Because she, that's something that she absolutely typically would do. But here's the catch, right? Well, it's two-part. One, I could look at that. I could look at that interaction and I could go, wow, that's different. Well, she must have finished school and things are different. So she's wanting to turn over a new leaf. Well, then it goes into the second part of this where, like the absolute thinking, you have to no, remember what you're dealing with. Remember what the reality is. It's like, okay. So in my mind, more than likely what's happened, because she's covert and she's really good at this, she told our son, who decided he didn't want to go to the trip, which is fine. I don't know whether she knew that he was going or not, so maybe it was an alternative means to get that information out through him. And, so then he's like, well, we talked about it and, it would be a bad idea to say anything. And we were talking about this on the way back from going to grab some food. Obviously my daughter didn't want to go. She was fairly upset. And we brought her some stuff back, and it also gave me some time to talk to my son alone, right? Or at least with less people in the car. And so, and then it's like, okay, then he gets really offended that, I think, Debbie had made a comment like, oh, well, that was really cool of you. And then it's like, well, of course, why wouldn't I, right? It's like everything is like this knee-jerk reaction to be some devious or some subversive comment that's being made. Well, so, and taking a step back and looking at the situation, it's like, okay, so this is probably what happened. The fish died. She wanted to try to get it to our daughter, mentions it to our son. He basically talks her out of it. So it was one of those things where had he said, well, you promised, because that's what the comment was, well, I promised that I would tell you, whenever it happened. I think there was one caveat, like, while taking a test or something that, she said she wouldn't, but any other time she would let her know. So it's almost like, okay, so probably what the game was is like, tell him, if he said, oh, well, you have to tell her because you promised to tell her, well, then she has, a backup to say to do it. And my point on this is that you can really get yourself caught in these scenarios to where you're wondering like, wow, that's, they could have done something really cruel. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've changed. It means that it's all a part of a bigger agenda, right? Because the better thing would have been to send me a note or send me a text and say, hey, don't really want to bother you, but this happened. I need to tell her, but I don't want to drop a bomb in your house, that type of thing. But that's, but so I guess what I'm saying is you have to look at the situation in total. You have to look at every part of it and not just the individual parts of it. And the bad part about this situation for us and this situation for you is that you get caught in these scenarios, or you get caught in this mode where you're looking for any breadcrumb of good, right? Because you want to. No matter what the situation is, you want to have a good interaction. You want, people to be good. You don't want to think the worst of people. But a lot of times in these situations, especially when you're dealing with somebody like this, you have to pause before you do anything that could hurt your own situation. And then you have to really take an objective look at the entire situation. And by saying that, you could even make an argument saying, well, I am taking an objective look. That was actually a really nice thing. She could have completely torpedoed the entire event. And to be honest, thank God she didn't, because that would have been, that would have ruined it, right? There is no way that we would have been able to come back from that. As soon as that would have happened, it would have ruined the entire trip. Now, do I think that, my ex was intentionally doing that to try to be nice? No, I think it was that she knows enough that if she did that, it would make her look worse because there's not a legitimate reason to do it. So her decision was all based on, okay, what can I do that won't necessarily look bad on me, on her, and accomplish the most amount of damage, I guess, effectively, of what she wants to do. So, and bottom line, guys, I mean, that's the thing, right? You have to just be mindful of this stuff and be careful. I mean, there's no way I could have stopped it if she would have wanted to try to do it, but and I'm really grateful that she didn't. I mean, it's kind of annoying that Mother's Day morning, I wake up to bawling and crying. Well, not wake up, but I mean, walk into this, and I don't even know what's going on, right? So then I have to go fishing. I'm like, what's going on? What happened? Why are you? I mean, I don't know. It's like, did something happen? Is it something here? Is it, you don't know. So you have to, so it starts that whole chaos or chaotic type of communication to try to figure that out. So when you're dealing with these things and with these situations, you just have to be really careful about your own emotions and how you're processing things and how you're dealing with it. Because there are times, especially early on with this, when you're still struggling with determining what you're really dealing with, that when they do things that might seem nice, you think, oh, okay, this is a change of events. Now, maybe your situation is different. Maybe, your experience will be a little bit different. And I would say on that is that if you have similar experiences and you do have different outcomes that aren't basically just this lather, rinse, and repeat of narcissistic, toxic behavior, then, maybe your ex has strong narcissistic traits, but isn't necessarily full-blown NPD. But I'm telling you, if it's like lather, rinse, and repeat with the same type of behavior, it's all the same. And the sooner that you can come to terms with that so that you don't allow yourself to get in other situations, it's different, right? When I dropped the kids off today for their time for Mother's Day, it was, she came out and was dropping, handing me stuff, which it's like, seriously, why even want to, I'm just thinking to myself, just leave me alone. So I grabbed the stuff, hugged the kids, and, said, okay, and just left. I didn't bring it up, and maybe that's what it was. Maybe, in retrospect, I hadn't thought about it. Maybe it was just to try to drive some type of conversation because there's a bunch of back end narcissistic BS that's going on right now. And, having those one-on-one occasions really leads to the potential for something bad happen. And, what better thing would be for me to respond negatively in front of the kids while I'm just coming out just to pay my late bill, which she actually did, right? So the 3-month medical that, she was 2 months late and technically would, paid early, I guess, if you want to talk about the April bill, there's no, well, why would you be mad, right? I'm just doing this, right? And then the kids would know any of the other stuff. So again, I took the stuff. Minimal Gray Rock, minimal conversation, hugged the last kid and went in the car and left. So, all right, bottom line, just be careful, be mindful of what's going on. Take a big picture view of everything that you're dealing with so that you don't allow these one-off little potential positives to derail you to think, oh my God, this nightmare is finally over. They finally are starting to change. Things can get different. Now, you can test the waters. Just be very, very careful because most of the time it's a trap. Okay, on that, if you want to add on your situation on how you're dealing with these specific scenarios yourself, add it into the comments. I know I've been a little behind on getting to comments, but I'll be trying to catch up here shortly. And I really enjoy hearing what you guys have to say, and the discussions that's going on in the comments have just been outstanding. Sometimes there's not even anything for me to say. You guys are actually having really great conversations, and it's like, how do I insert myself into that conversation, right? Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. I really appreciate it when you do that, and I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care.